So Bungie has announced a new ranked competitive playlist, and the carrot behind the stick is going to be the hand cannon, the Rose. Today I want to talk about the Rose and whether it's a worthy trophy of your time and effort next season. Let's get into it. Now, if you guys didn't already know, the Rose was originally a 150 RPM hand cannon, but all 150 RPM hand cannons got shoehorned into the 140 RPM category as part of a balance patch a while back. 150s used to be really dominant. Their higher rate of fire allowed them to outcompete other 140 hand cannons in the meta with a faster TTK. Guns like Thorn and the Waking Vigil were great examples of this. 150 RPM hand cannons could achieve an optimal TTK of 0.8 seconds, outcompeting 140s which had a TTK of 0.87 seconds. The way Bungie balanced this was by giving 150s slightly inferior stats, namely in the range and stability department. But what Bungie has not done is ever gone back and buffed those old 150s stats to match their now much lower rate of fire. Thorn, Waking Vigil still have much lower range than their traditional 140 counterparts. I think this is where the Rose can really shine. Bungie is going back and re-releasing one of the old 150s and giving it a unique frame. Bungie has announced that the new Rose is going to be a unique weapon whereby it will fire like a 140 RPM hand cannon but provide the movement of a 150 and the stats between the two. The new Rose will also get random rolls and it will get random grips on top. Now, the OG Rose had a static roll, which is the first roll you'll actually get next season. That was Chambered Compensator, Accurized Rounds, Outlaw, and Polymer Grip with a Range Masterwork. This is the roll you can see me using in the background, and honestly speaking, it's a 2 or a 3 out of 5 roll. Within its intended range, it does feel sticky enough, but once you start pushing that range in a duel, it really does start to diminish a bit. The OG roll has 30.21 meters of range, which seriously falls behind other competitors like a crafted Ostringer, which can actually surpass 35 meters of range. Now, this is where I think that the reprised version could really help to close the gap. If Bungie decides to buff the base range on this new version of Rose, and say with random rolls that can access barrels like Hammerforged Rifling, perks like Rangefinder or Opening Shot, and say you have similar grip options like Hawkmoon, which provide a bit more stability, then you can really have a weapon that competes with the other top hand cannons. Rose has a great advantage in that its base recoil is already 95. Perfectly vertical, so that you can really focus on the barrels and grips that maximize the stats that you want. The OG version's recoil is one of the easiest to control. It doesn't veer off left or right. The gun model itself isn't intrusive, so with random rolls, this really could become one of the top hand cannons to chase. The reprised version will also have a lightweight 150 frame, which will really give it great handling, a passive boost to sprint speed, and a passive 20 mobility stat boost. When you start maining any lightweight weapon, it becomes hard to go back. It's probably my favorite frame out of any weapon. However, let's take a step back. Are hand cannons a trophy item anymore? Are they truly viable options in the meta? A 140 RPM hand cannon requires 100% accuracy to achieve its optimal TTK of 0.87 seconds. The weapon's place in the meta is determined by two things: its optimal TTK and how easy or consistent it is to achieve that TTK. Unfortunately, the unforgiving nature of hand cannons with their now outdated TTK is making 140s fall out of fashion. You miss one shot and boom, that TTK goes well over 1 second. Other meta weapons just don't have that unforgiving nature. A rapid fire pulse has a TTK of 0.8 seconds and it's extremely forgiving as well. Sidearms can achieve a ridiculous 0.6 seconds TTK, and with something like Drang, it can really push out the range. 900 RPM SMGs like the Funnel Web can hit a 0.67 seconds TTK. Heck, even the slower 600 RPM SMGs and auto rifles can hit 0.8 seconds that have great range and ease of use. The one thing hand cannons will always have going for them is their ability to be a peak shooting powerhouse. Good players will always be able to outskill faster TTKs through using cover and peak shooting with high accuracy. With a weapon like an SMG or a pulse rifle, you're actually exposing yourself out of cover for longer, so that's the one advantage hand cannons will always have. You can go in and out and expose yourself less, while still achieving the same TTK. And previously, they used to be lethal in the air, but the airborne effectiveness change hit them harder than any other weapon in my eyes. I think there's actually a few options to truly make hand cannons competitive again. Number 1, bring back 150s. That 0.07 TTK improvement will really help them to compete against other weapons in this sandbox. Number 2, make hand cannons more forgiving. Back in D1, hand cannons required only 2 headshots and 1 body shot to achieve their optimal TTK. Now it's 3 headshots for a not so competitive TTK. Number 3, revert the in-air accuracy changes. Make hand cannons a viable option to use aggressively again. You only need one of these buffs to make hand cannons extremely competitive again. Pick any one of those 3 and you will see a massive upscale in the usage of hand cannons. You don't actually need to nerf any other archetype. We're in a sandbox where even small tiny changes can produce drastic effects to the overall meta. So what's my final verdict? The Rose will be a top tier legendary hand cannon to chase, no doubt. With random rolls and access to a better pool of PvP orientated perks, a non-intrusive gun model, a smooth vertical recoil, it really will be a trophy hand cannon to chase. But for it to really start out competing the other guns in the meta, the Pulses, the SMGs, the sidearms, Bungie will need to bring out a change I mentioned before. Even just one of those changes will start to tip the scales more into hand cannon territory. Reintroduce 150 RPM hand cannons. I believe this would be a perfect time to do so. I'm Mr. Onnit, and if you enjoyed what I talked about today, remember to subscribe as we go into the new season. Peace out, guys.